Okay, at 6 o'clock, I'm going to call to order this business meeting of the Community Consolidated School District 59. Can I get a roll call, please?
Okay. Zach,
Present.
Espino, present. Johnson,
Present.
Mancilla,
Present.
Sager,
Present.
Schumacher, Chesney.
Present.
Okay.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and then before we move on to our 4.0 presentations, Board Member Schumacher has a statement about a prior board member.
We had a board member in the past with whom I served, and who actually he was on the board before I even got on the board back in 40 years ago. John Shannon. Do some of you know John Shannon? The name sound familiar? Well, he passed away this past week. He was only 81. He wasn't that old, but we lost one of our board members. He was an excellent board member. He served for quite a while. So our sympathy to the family.
All right, thank you.
We
And
don't often have to give that kind of an announcement, so it's
yeah,
good that we don't.
good that it's few and far between. Okay, so we're moving on to 4.0 presentation from the District 59 Educational Foundation. We have them here. You can come up to the table.
Good evening. Our president is not here, and she is the one that was all prepared for this. So I can either fill in or we can wait. I texted her to see if she thought the meeting started at 7. I don't know. At your pleasure, whatever you'd like us to do.
I'm okay either way. Should we delay?
It's up to you. If you'd like to delay. Well, I just know that she prepared everything, and I would hate to forget something,
we can
but
wait.
is that okay?
We can do comments, suggestions
Okay.
from the public, some consent stuff, and then
Perfect.
we can come back to you.
Thank you. I apologize. Hi, Myrtle.
Yeah, so I'm going to call up somebody, then I'll read the statement. Jessica Zolmerski, and just give me a moment to read the public comment statement here. We will have an updated version of this shortly. So this is the point of the meeting where we welcome public comments. Tonight is a regularly scheduled Board of Education business meeting. The purpose of the meeting is for the board to properly address the items on the agenda publicly as required by the Open Meetings Act. To allow the board the time needed to address all agenda items, we ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. A board member will serve as timekeeper and will give the speaker notice when there are 30 seconds remaining to allow the speaker time to complete or summarize their thoughts. Public comment during a business meeting is a time for the board to listen to comments from the public, but this is not a time for a two-way discussion between the board and the public. Please understand the board will not ask nor answer questions. If you have questions or wish to have a response to any item, please submit your comments in writing, and the superintendent will follow up with a response. We also want to remind those in attendance that this meeting is being video live streamed. The video of the meeting will also be archived and available for viewing after the meeting has adjourned. For those of you sharing a public comment, please be mindful that you are being broadcast live and your comment will also be included in the video archive. Due to the need to conduct the full meeting in a timely manner, the board will allow a maximum of 60 minutes for all public comments this evening. It will not take that. All right.
Don't worry, it won't take that long.
So I'll keep time for the. Yep. So I'll let you know when there's 30 seconds left.
We're good. Greetings, distinguished Board of Education members, district administrators, staff, and community members. My name is Jessica Zolmersky, Friendship Junior High School choir director and general music teacher, and the K-8 music lead teacher for the district. I wanted to take the time on behalf of my department to extend our gratitude to the Board of Education, Dr. Bresnahan, Mrs. Susan Savage, Mrs. Nicole Robinson, Mr. Ron O'Connor, and the entire SLT team for their tremendous support of music in District 59. First of all, our department would like to thank you for the creation of the new music and art teaching positions that started at the beginning of this school year. Creating dedicated roles in our content area was the first step in the commitment to excellence in both the music and the art programs in District 59. Thank you for creating the lead teacher positions. I've heard from many of my colleagues words of thanks over this past year for feeling represented, heard, and supported, especially while many of our veteran teachers were in a transition period from teaching fine arts to just specifically music, and then a whole another slew of new teachers to the district as well. I'm also personally thankful for being given the opportunity to help create what this position looks like, and I've grown in my own leadership skills as a result. Our first order of business as a team was to identify the needs across the district. Through our process, we identified instrument, materials, and resources as the greatest need. In the winter, the team created a proposal that SLT supports, which will outfit every single elementary school with a full set of xylophones, metallophones, glockenspiels, and other elementary percussion instruments. Each music classroom at the elementary and junior high level will now have a full set of ukuleles, which was a very large inequity across the district, and also receive a portable speaker and PA system that will enhance both the daily instruction as well as our performances. New four-step choral risers will also be available to any music teacher in the district that needs them to showcase their performers, and they will be used at our next year's District 59 Choral Festival. These investments will last many, many years and will have a direct impact from day one on each and every child in District 59. Another area we identified was the need to align our curriculum, having everybody done different things for so many years, as well as develop a rigorous K-8 curriculum. We have been supported not only with the materials and resources we needed, but also with the time to do this. We had more dedicated Teacher Institute time this year than in any recent years. Please keep that coming. And additionally, these past few days, so we were out on Wednesday, music teachers were in that corner room on Thursday, on Friday, today, and we're meeting again tomorrow. And a good chunk of us too. There was 10 out of the 15 that are currently hired for next school year. So that's outstanding.
10 seconds.
We have been diligently working to update our curriculum. We are looking forward to hosting some music-specific PD sessions in August, just prior to the start of the school year. Thank you to the support to have this dedicated and compensated time to devote to the improvement of our content area and our ability to serve our students. The excitement in the room as we discuss the future of music education in 59 is exhilarating. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Barb Novak.
Hi, everyone. My name is Barb Novak, and I'm the music teacher at Brentwood. I just wanted to piggyback on what Mrs. Zolmersky stated, thanking the board and Dr. Bresnahan and the SLT team for creating the additional and separate teaching roles at the elementary level for music and art teachers. On a personal note, it has been a fabulous year of musical growth for the Brentwood Bears, and I'm so proud of their progress. I not only teach at Brentwood, but I also attended Brentwood. I'm so appreciative that our district is supporting the arts and values the creative development of our students. Having a lead teacher has been a great resource as well. Thanks to Mrs. Zolmersky, she's led us in great directions all year long, and we have been solidifying our music curriculum to make it the best it can be for our kiddos. Thank you for providing us with the collaboration time to do so as well this week. I also wanted to thank you in advance for the addition of the instruments to our program. Our instrument collection was in need of an update, and we can now provide even more excellent opportunities for our budding musicians. They'll be so thrilled to see the new xylophones and glockenspiels, more ukuleles, and the accompanying accessories when they come back in August. Oh, the musical places they will go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. We got one more signed up, Deb Banky.
During April's meeting, I mentioned the survey Ridge families received looking for input regarding the new principal search. Myself and many others submitted our contact information, electing to be part of this search process. None of us were ever contacted. And tonight you will be announcing whom you've chosen without our input. This is another example of the lack of transparency and trust with the SLT. In March, there were 24 resignations and 6 retirements. In April, there were 3 resignations and 6 retirements. In May, there were 15 resignations and 3 retirements. On tonight's agenda, there are 26 resignations and 6 retirements. That's a total of 89 retirements in a 4-month period. We, as a community, have been informed that some of these resignations were from non-tenured teachers that were not giving support to succeed and were, quote, asked to leave. This is shocking and concerning. What questions are the board members asking the SLT about these resignations, if you're asking any at all? I wouldn't be surprised if many feel the environment has become too hostile and are leaving to work in better districts. In March, the SLT said they were creating about 36 new positions. Between those and the 89 I just mentioned, that's 125 vacancies. That does not include other positions that are still vacant. This indicates the failure of the SLT and in turn failure for our students and community. This is not how to prepare our students to be successful for life. Thank you.
Thank you. Presenter? Not yet. She's on her way. Okay, vamp a little. Okay, so okay, so let's move on. We can do the consent agenda 6.0. I need a motion for that.
She's walking in.
Oh,
Well, we can do that.
yeah, we'll do the consent if somebody can give me a motion.
Do you want to do that? I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Robert.
Be resolved that on the 12th day of June 2023, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approved the consent agenda as presented and amended in this motion, including 6.01, approval of minutes prior meeting, 6.02, disbursements resolution, 6.03, acceptance of financial reports, 6.04, acceptance of recommendations human resources report, 6.05, approval to destroy 18-month-old or older closed session recordings, 6.06, determination of serious safety hazards related to student transportation, 6.07, approval of student meal fees for the 2023-24 school year, 6.08, appointment of school treasurer, 6.09, the school treasurer bond.
Does anybody want to pull any of the items from the discussion agenda? Any board members? No?
I would think it would be good just to talk about human resources report. Just to
Human
discuss.
resources report?
Yeah, 6.04.
6.04.
Do we do the
Oh,
second first?
yeah, let's do a second first.
And
Sorry.
then we take it up. And then we can talk
Yeah.
about it.
Then we can take. Sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay, second. So you want to pull 6.04, so everything except 6.04, we go forward? Or do you want to just a separate discussion on that? Because we can discuss it without pulling it. It's up.
It's just at least a discussion.
Okay, yep, go right ahead.
Sure. I'm also very concerned about the number of positions that need to be filled for next year. I'm sure that's not a rare opinion. I guess, want to know what is the district's plan to recruit and retain staff, especially staff who is tenured and we don't want to lose?
Yeah, well, so I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Vittori from Human Resources. So it is part of our strategic plan. It is an ongoing effort. It is a daily effort. It goes through every layer of our organization. I think starting with our Board of Education, I think consistency and clarity, leadership, direction, aligning to our mission, professional learning and support, having the time dedicated. I think we heard some of those mentions tonight are all factors that contribute to people to retention. I think we're also facing with the reality of teacher shortages across the state, across the nation, a lot of competitive position openings, especially when we're looking at the needs of our students and some of our positions that are hard to fill areas as well. So I think it is a multifaceted effort that I think the district does a really good job at. Ross, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll simply add, we are really not in a different situation than most of our neighboring districts, given the amount of movement in the ed space with the pandemic and with districts moving, starting to move past that. There are more job opportunities. People are starting to leave to work closer to home. Their time at home is more valuable. But we are also seeing really healthy candidate pools to our postings. And the quality of the staff that we're interviewing this year is probably the strongest it's been in the last few years. We start our hiring process in the winter. If you go back to the resource allocation presentations, the committee of the whole presentations, this is year-round work. But I will say what makes District 59 unique is that we added 36 positions this year, and we added 20-some the year before. That is an extensive amount to add when the conditions are already such that there's an uptick, and that is directly related to the efficiency options we have within our district that we've already discussed in prior meetings. But the district is actually in a very healthy place. Our hiring managers have been very busy. It's not the finish line, but we are moving in the right direction.
And do we know how far to the finish line we are from all of the open positions, including all of the resignations? Because I mean, I do echo the concern for my email and request for the historical report on departures and hiring. I think it's going to be very important for us to keep a close eye, a pulse on how we're going to enter the new year of providing the right education to all the kids.
I believe if I heard you correctly, the question was how close are we monitoring getting to the finish line to make sure that we have proper staffing for our students? Is that correct?
Yes.
I would say that we monitor it every moment of every day right now from my role.
Well,
and I will say,
I'm more of a question on I know you are monitored, absolutely. Please do not think that I'm questioning whether or not you monitor it. I'm wondering how far did we make our way into the closing those
So he wants a
positions?
status update on our hiring right now.
So essentially, how does the fraction of open positions to hires compare now to last year, sort of thing?
Could you speak a little louder also?
Sure. I do not have the actual numeric breakdown today compared to last year. I will tell you that when we have an opening, if a teacher retires, there is sometimes internal interest for that position. And that is actually a part of retention. Because if someone's taught something for a long time and they're ready for something different, or they're in a different life stage and they're ready for something different, or they've gone back to school, you'll see some lane changes and they're ready to apply their new education. We want to honor that. That creates another opening.
Yep.
And then sometimes someone wants that opening. And it is not uncommon that one opening in District 59 can turn into 5. So when you see 100 openings, that does not mean 100 people resigned. It can actually mean a number of different things. But we also do maintain and really monitor that balance because we want to keep consistency in teams. We want to make sure that the professional development from this year doesn't get lost if everybody wants a move, gets a move next year. So I'd be happy in a future board meeting or in a board update to provide more data behind where we are in comparison. But I feel that we are going into the summer this year in a much better place than we were last year, even with the increased FTEs, which I believe even back during resource allocation we shared, we may not be able to fill all of those. And our goal isn't to fill just to fill. It's if we have quality candidates to make sure that we can, to your point, have all the resources for our kids.
And I think what's really important for context for the board is that every decision that we make about our facilities and about our number of schools impacts the number of human resources that we require. So when we look at schools who are under 250, under 300 students, they still get a full-time principal. They're still getting an assistant principal. They're still getting a nurse. They're still getting, and our interventionists and so on and so forth. So I think we have to look holistically if we want to look at staffing. It's not just a human resource issue. I think it's a much bigger issue. And as we presented the resource allocation presentations and adding these new positions, we were very clear that this is not a sustainable model. Just continuing to add more and more positions, it's not just a financial one because we may have the means. It's also putting an impact on the system in terms of how many people we're able to keep and maintain as we continue to grow, and looking at programs that are resources spread thin across broader areas. So it's a
absolutely
bigger
understandable.
conversation that I think we need to have some long-term discussions about.
No, it is absolutely understandable, but I mean, I'll say every school deserves a principal and all of the resources needed.
Yeah, and that's what we do.
Doesn't matter the size, and they're district bigger than ours that are able to maintain it, and they're able to grow and still hire. So, I mean, coming from corporate, I think it's just a matter of how you scale it and how do you tackle the problem, because there's different ways to tackle a problem. And I want to make sure that we are open-minded, not just looking at the statistics on the resources per student in a given school, but also at just overall need, because our prerogative is to help the kids. It's not to invest money or look at just how much money is per student spent.
I don't think
all
any of
about-
us in this room look at it that way. I think that's the collective, collaborative
but
efforts
that's
towards
where
it.
the 200, 300 students in a given school comes from, right? That's in part, that's where it's coming from. So I want to make sure that we just keep open mind for everything else.
Let me ask.
I can share an example of it's much more than a ratio of 200 students in a school. When you have a smaller school, you can have 2 classes in second grade 1 year, and then they roll up into second grade 2 classes. But that prior year, there were 3 classes at third grade. And the next year, the 3 first grades go to, that causes teachers to have to change positions almost every year. That does not help retainment. That is a huge struggle. If you're trying to get to know a curriculum and you're having to change grade levels once a year, or every 2 years, that's a struggle. If you have a class of 36 or 32 or 9, that's a struggle. Certainly not that we don't want to give all of our students every resource we can. I believe our work, I don't think anyone in this room would argue that our work does not align with that. But just wanting those positions, even if Brentwood, if we had 30 amazing teachers ready to go to Brentwood, we have nowhere to put them. So it is a very complex issue. And I do appreciate the question. I will provide some more data, just comparison from a hiring standpoint. I can share some information about where the current openings still are. They're on our website. Please help us network. But it is something very important to us and something that we are watching very closely.
Ross, let me ask because I think sometimes, and I can't remember what happened last year, but is your department caught off guard, or is this the trend in a sense of end of the school year? That's when the resignations come in. We will have a higher number of resignations come in this report, and then a higher number of hires as we get closer to the school year, et cetera. Like, are there cycles?
There can be. There are typical flows within an educational calendar. I will say districts have experienced some changes in that in the last few years. Some of that can be, and I've heard this, I love it here, but I live an hour away. I now have 2 kids, and the school across the street had a third grade teacher retire.
Right.
And so that might come at a time where we're not necessarily expecting it. And then there are family needs and health needs and many other things. But I think one really important detail to remember or to know, if you're not aware, when you see the word retirement or resignation on a consent agenda, it may be up there multiple times because of one position. So if Ron resigns, it will say Ron O'Connor resignation. The next month it might say Susan Savage opening reason is resignation, because we don't just add positions and FTEs. What that is saying is that that position is open because of a resignation. So to just look and to count all of those up is not the purpose of that data on that chart. It's really to show the board for that line item, what's the reason for that opening?
Mhm.
It's based on a leave of absence, a retirement, a resignation.
Mhm.
But yes, in the winter, spring, you're going to see longer lists of retirements and resignations,
Mhm.
which is typical.
I guess I want to come back to my first question. I don't feel, I guess I'm wondering, what are we doing to keep people? I know that you have all had discussions with, like, for example, union reps recently, and they've made suggestions in terms of like conditions school and behavior and et cetera. Is that something you guys are considering and moving forward, helping out to retain then?
I think everything we do that's is based on feedback and data and input, and does go, it all somehow ties into things that help retain our staff. So even the new ELA curriculum, that is something through a solid plan with teacher collaboration is going to lead towards higher retention around that subject area. So I think everything we do based on that are absolutely, like our art, splitting art and music as opposed to keeping our art and music together. Absolutely, we had to double our positions, but we're able to now say you're only teaching this as opposed to having to teach something outside your content area. Again, another thing that adds to retention. We also, in the human resources department, we do exit surveys for all staff who are leaving, and Mr. Vittori offers exit interviews for anyone who's leaving that wants to, and we review all of that data so we can understand, is it a move situation? Is there something that we could have done something about and learn from and change? So I think that is the day-to-day operations of the district that is intentionally going behind, ensuring that we have a culture and an environment where all of our staff can thrive and want to stay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd also like to clarify too, I can't remember the date, but maybe 8 months ago, we finished the negotiations with the contract with the DEA that were very successful. We both sides get to air out and discuss kind of the state of the relationship, what they like to see, et cetera. We heard from 2 teachers today. I mean, total staff, how many are we talking about?
1,000.
1,000 total employees.
Yeah, we might be tipping over 1,000.
Total 1,000, not for that contract, but
Right,
yes,
but
1,000 employees.
1,000 employees total. That's the world we're looking at when we talk about the staff. So there are a lot of things. When we had the ELA, it was a Saturday morning event for the parents to come see the new curriculum, and the staff that spoke with Joe and I were very happy of the new curriculum. So there's a lot of, not saying we should not pay attention to the resignations or why people are leaving. We should always pay attention to why people are leaving. But I wouldn't classify it, or I don't want to paint it in a brush of like a mass exodus. It's not like the employment shortage where a restaurant can't open because there's no staff to fill it. But also too, my last point as I continue to rant, going what Dr. Bresnahan said, we want to make sure that we have qualified staff that are taking up these roles and teaching these kids. You hear from other states where they're having non-certified, teachers fill these roles, or even veterans fill these roles, or doing things like that. But, we want to make sure that we have the best possible candidates to fill these roles. So we have them in the classroom.
Okay, everybody good?
Yeah, I'll just say, I don't mean any offense. I just want to make sure we're keeping people who are good, and we're putting all the supports daily in practice for our teachers so that they want to stay.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, no offense at all. I agree 100%.
Okay, so we're good with it staying in the consent agenda? Sarah?
Can I ask one more HR question?
Mhm.
In terms of the process of hiring, if you have, for example, like a building administrator, right? In that process, how would that go? Would you create like a hiring committee that would then provide a recommendation?
It varies depending on the quantity of people within a pool that we need to hire. So if we have to hire multiple people, for example, but we run that through Human Resources coordinates that. We do put out surveys to our families and to our staff for administrator openings, so they have the opportunity to provide feedback. And then we create a committee of people who have the opportunity, usually internally, to serve on that. For administrative roles in particular, to make a recommendation.
And then who would be on like a hiring committee?
So it'll be teachers, usually the existing building administrators. It varies depending on what that position is, who would have input or, have a different perspective to share.
And then would you always then accept the recommendation of the hiring committee? Or would there be times when you might go a different direction?
There may be times when, so what we do in the hiring process is we ask for input. So we'll ask for what were the positives, what were the areas, that you would want further clarification on around any potential candidate. Then we also do reference checks and background checks, and we look for the right fit depending on the role. So the interview team is not necessarily making the recommendation. Ultimately, the recommendation comes from me. For those administrative positions. When it comes to, we have hiring managers for all sorts of different positions, and those recommendations come from the hiring managers. So it might be principals, it might be department leads, it might be, members of SLT, depending on what those roles are.
Okay, Mardell, did you have a?
I'm assuming if you know that one of our longtime employees is going to be leaving, that the next year that they'll have to be replaced, you put a notice out to the district that there will be an opening in such and such a place. Is that true?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, all of the postings are live, and anyone is welcome to apply. There are times where staff will directly ask for a transfer, and those will be considered. And I just want to echo and thank you for your comment about the need to put every effort toward retaining high quality staff. And that is everyone's effort. That's HR's, it's the Board of Education, it's our parents, it's our community, it's everyone. Because we are a learning community. And when we're a learning community, people can feel that, and then they can connect to the learning community that best fits them. So thank you for bringing that up at such an important time of year.
Okay, and then one thing I would suggest is in the July meeting, maybe we do a separate HR report, separate from the consent agenda, which is just the list of people basically, and you can give us a little bit more detail about how we look compared to last year. Are there any positions that are difficult to fill, that sort of thing?
Absolutely.
Okay, we good? Yep. All right, then we're going to do a roll call vote on the consent
On the
agenda.
consent. Okay. Espino, aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Mancilla.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
And Zach.
Aye.
Okay, so motion passes. It's approved.
At this point, we will go back to 4.0, a presentation from the District 59 Educational Foundation, if you don't mind coming up.
Make sure the little green light is on.
Yes, it's on. Okay. Well, it's kind of good that I'm here now instead of earlier, because I've got some information you can share with your wonderful staff and new staff about the Education Foundation. We're going to be doing some wonderful things for staff and community in the next year. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm president and chairman of the Education Foundation. I've been in this district almost 50 years. Started with my child in kindergarten, teacher, and now this. So I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was a good place to be. And also, Karen, you want to start? This is our treasurer, Karen. She helps keep us honest and glued together.
Good evening. Nice to be here tonight. My name is Karen Osmansky, and I also have been connected to District 59 for almost 50 years as a parent, as a teacher, as a school principal, and as a board member. So it is always a pleasure to be back, and the foundation allows me to keep that strong connection. So thank you for all you do.
And I'm going to call on Jane. I call her our fine arts director, but I'll explain that later.
Hi, I'm Jane Holton Scott. I've been associated with District 59 since 1977, and I've been on the board, the foundation board, since I retired in 2014. And I too love giving back to this district. They gave me the best job ever.
Ann?
Good evening, I'm Ann Spangler, and I recently retired from School District 59, and I too was part of District 59 for over 30 years, and also am a community member as well. So I thought this would be a wonderful way for me to give back to the community and still keep in contact with the people that I love in District 59.
Thank you. Rose?
Rose Kelly, recently retired as of August 1st this year. I was the office manager at John Jay and at Claremont. And I've been in the district probably since 2000, I don't remember, 1997 when my kids started at Woodley.
Thank you. We also, Sharon Lansdowne is our secretary.
Pull your microphone closer.
We also have a few other people that just weren't able to come today. And we're waiting for a new board liaison. So if any of you would like to join us once a month, third Tuesday of the month, we'd love to have you. Our mission statement is we are enhancing the quality of education and increase community involvement for Community Consolidated School District 59. And we really strive, especially in the past year or so, to work closer with the district's objectives. Like, what do you need? What do you want to do? What can we do to help that along? Or we'll get an idea and how will this fit in with what you do? There's, and if you can see that up there, there's a little thing that's some of the stuff that we do. We think it's important to highlight collaboration to best meet the needs of our community. And I want to tell you what we're doing with our well, we have funding. One of the things we do is we ask for donations from our vendors. And Ron helps us with that. And they've been pretty good about coughing up some money for us because they have a nice relationship with you. And then we also get donations from some other organizations in the community. We kind of share and help each other. And then this year we got a very large donation from an anonymous donor, a donor who wishes to remain anonymous. And while this was wonderful news, it also was a lot of work because we had to really work hard to make sure we were doing everything the right way. We had to get an accountant, we had to file more papers for taxes, and now we're trying to find a good way to invest this money so that it will continue to come back to the district and do things. But what we're going to do with that money and our budget next year, and we've got a beautiful budget. It looks so nice now. We're really getting professional here. We are already planning our talent. We're already planning our talent show for next year. That's where Jane comes in. She does. There's some pictures up there. It's marvelous. If you have not been there, put it on your calendar as soon as you know about it. It's in April. We're not sure yet where it's going to be, but it's fantastic. Every school in the district participates. All the parents are there, and grandmas and grandpas, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful event. Well, we will be doing, that's again, not a huge fundraiser for us, but it's so important for the community. We're going to continue to do that. The other thing we do, which we've done traditionally, but we do it a little bit different now, is grants. And anyone, staff members can apply for grants, and also community members, but mostly it's staff that applies for it. And this year they've been limited to $500. And it's like, I could really use this. What did somebody do? Help me out. There was a big art project over at Devonshire where they had cameras and they took pictures through pinholes. They did stuff like that. A lot of the parents came out. There's things that they do with animation, with, it's just a marvelous thing. This is things that the teachers think this would be really cool to do. It's not my budget, but we're glad to support something like that. And I even told the people I was at the art show, and I said, gee, if you had an after school club, we could fund it. So those are the kinds of things that we would like to see done. Innovative, fresh ideas, and that if you don't have the money to do it, the district doesn't have the money or has other places to spend it, but we're there to help. We're also doing this year pre-K funding. We've done that for 2 years, and then we cut back. We said, if you want it, fill out a grant. And the principals came back to us and said, we all want it. So we're going to have a district-wide pre-K program. And that's where each school gets a set amount of money, and they can decide how to best meet the needs of their incoming students. They want to give them books, they want to give them materials, they want to have a little whatever works best for them. It's not us telling them what to do, it's just us supporting them. Another thing we're going to do again this year is the school bags for the back to school days. And we have purchased 500 bags Oh, and I have a flyer for you, if you wouldn't mind passing these around. And that's also another great event. We're always there to help. And we're asking for volunteers from the retirees group and from anybody in the community. Then we've got some really cool things in addition to that. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Calm app. It's a meditation thing and it's a calming thing. Well, we hear a lot about teachers being stressed. As you know, I'm sure you hear it too. So my daughter, who used to work in this district, actually, she works for a different company now, and she's, oh, I love this app. The kids and I listen to it at night, and we all come to, oh, tell me about it. So we looked into it, and we're going to offer that to staff next year. We're really proud of that. And also, we're in the process of creating an art wall. I talked to Terry about this, and what we want to do is have your walls in here are just, they're naked. They're just naked. So what we're going to do is we're not quite sure yet, but Jane is working on that. We're going to like maybe frames that open up and you just put the picture in, and we'll find a way to do it without imposing on the teachers to come here and run back and forth and do it. So it's in the works, but then at least once, I mean, I would love to see it change every month, but kids will have it with their name on there. We're going to try and get, I don't know if their picture's legal. We'll see about that. But it's just a nice way to decorate your bare walls and to give the kids the recognition, because we've got some really great artists out there. We also had art at the talent show too. It was fantastic. And then another thing that we are going to just think about and work on, you know, that, what do you call it? That flag thing where the flag is, that little patch of land. We keep saying every time we go by, wouldn't that be nice if there's some paver bricks in there? Wouldn't it be nice so we're looking into that. I've talked to somebody from the Elk Grove Park District, because if anybody knows paver bricks and statues, it's them. And they do a beautiful job with it. So I asked them who their supplier was and what they did and what we had to do. So there's a man there, Brian, I can't remember his last name, but he's going to help us out with that. Give us some ideas anyway. So we'll look into that. It will probably a little bit of a fundraiser. I mean, we're not going to just give the bricks away because I think people need ownership, but we're not looking to make a ton of money. We just want to do something nice for the district and for the grounds here. Again, a little boring. I shouldn't say that. But, and then the other thing that we thought was really cool is scholarships. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I have a lot of grandkids graduating different places. And one graduated high school, and they were giving them scholarships from their grammar schools, and they hadn't been in grammar school for a long time. I thought, well, why can't we do something like that? Like reach out to Elk Grove or Hersey, our local high schools. We'd have to figure out a way to do this, to settle it, to say, if you went to Elk Grove if you went to District 59 for at least, I don't know, 3 years, 5 years, you had this. I know we can make any kind of restrictions we want, but I thought, what a nice gift to give to and also we get all these high school kids that come and help us, when we do the talent shows. So why not reward them with something like that? So we're going to look at that. I don't know what we're going to do. That's like for probably next year. But we're really busy and really active, and that's why I got the date wrong, the time wrong in my head. But that's not the only reason. But anyway, it's we're excited to be doing this kind of stuff. We really are, because now if we've changed a few things around, it seems like things are really happening and they're going. We've got new people that are, oh yeah, I'll help with that. That means so much when you've got good people like that. So anyway, I hope I didn't talk too long. That's who we are. That's what we do. Come and visit us. Even if you don't want to be a liaison, please come and visit us anytime. Our meetings are open and they're short. I keep them going. So we start at 7. So thank you for your time. Do you have any questions? That was hard to answer.
If I am a staff member, how do I find you? Where do I go?
We're online. We have a website, and it's connected to the district's website. You can go there. If you want to apply for a grant, there's a place where it says grant. You can fill that out. There's a way to contact. We have a Gmail address, so they can reach us. Mm-hmm. It was easy. Anything else?
And I just want to say thank you to all the foundation members for all the creative work you do and how you help energize the teachers and make them feel appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the talent show. How many people were at the talent show this year? It was a packed auditorium.
300 maybe.
300 in attendance, and it was a well-oiled machine.
Wasn't
as far as all the foundation members, running the tables, running the ticket booths.
We got that
everybody in and
little
out.
square thing this year to put oh, we were like, look at this.
Yeah.
We're easily impressed. You know,
Yeah.
we're old. It's easy. You know, technology is wonderful. Yeah. But it did go, we were a little crowded though. That was,
That's a good thing.
yeah. But but the kids were just, oh, so adorable. So, just so cute. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And while we have the foundation members here, and other guests, I would like to request that we move action items 9.01, 9.02, and 9.03 up, if everybody's okay with that. Yes? I see everybody's head nod. Okay. Because 9.01 is approval of, I believe, the Calm app donation that you just spoke of, and I can make the motion on that. Do I need to? I don't need to read the whole thing, right? Okay. So this is as spelled out in the resolution. This is a donation of the Calm app for use by our teachers throughout the district, and it's out from the generous contributions of the District 59 Foundation. So, motion second. Any other questions or discussion? No. All right. Roll call then. No problem. Sorry, I changed the order on you. 9.01, action item.
Can I just make a comment while she's looking it up? Could you just, the foundation people, could you make a concerted effort to let the board know when there's going to be a big up and coming event? Because if we don't know about these things, we can't be there. Thank you.
And if you want to volunteer at one of our events.
Not just a little note, but let us know. Advertise it.
Maybe it might be easier if we email Joe, Dr. Sager here, and then he forwards it out to everybody else, or
Yeah, or they
Yeah,
usually
probably do
get
that.
collated in the weekly events list.
Okay.
All right.
Listos. Roll call. Okay. Johnson.
Aye.
Mancilla.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
And Espino. Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that moves us on. Let's do 9.02 while we have, so this is appointment.
Yes, so I will read a little bit, I will share a little background, and then we will ask for the board motion and vote. So I'm very excited tonight to be recommending a new principal for Holmes Junior High. After our search process led us to one of our actual internal candidates. So one of our assistant principals from Friendship Junior High, Miss Brandy Boyd, who is with us tonight, will be recommended tonight for serving as the new principal of Holmes Junior High. She has an extensive background in education. She's been with District 59 for 4 years as assistant principal. She's also serves as one of our principals for summer school. So she does it all and works very hard, has had a tremendous time really growing and learning under her principals throughout her career here at Friendship. And we are very excited for her to be joining the Holmes Junior High team as principal. So with that, I will ask for a motion from the board.
I'll make the motion. Okay, be it resolved that on the 12th day of June 2023, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education hereby approves the contract and appoints Brandy Boyd as principal of Holmes Junior High effective July 1st, 2023.
I will second that.
I'll second it.
Oh, pardon.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then a vote.
Okay.
Discussion?
We can have a discussion.
Okay, so just real quick, again, I think it goes back to the question that Sarah had. What is, especially for positions like principal, what is the process for ultimately getting to our decision, and how much does the committee's opinion weigh on the ultimate decision?
Yeah, I think it weighs heavily. And so we involved, as we described before, it involves a process that we followed for years preceding me. Principals are roles that I directly supervise and am responsible for. So that right fit for me is really important, as well as for our leadership team. And then taking into consideration all staff of that school, as well as our goals and our direction for that. Having experience with our candidates also plays into that as well, which sometimes staff at other buildings don't have that. So it is a collaborative process, ultimately someone that I am responsible for recommending and supervising.
Stand up.
Any further discussion?
I mean, I just don't really have an answer of like what the process is. Is it the same across schools, or does it depend?
I'm happy to have that outline that full process if you would like, and I can write it out for you. It's a similar process for our principal since I started here.
Okay.
Roll call. Mancilla.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Espino, aye. Johnson.
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. And now we.
All right, that moves on to 9.03.
So we also have a principal that we'll be recommending this evening for our Ridge Family Center for Learning. So with us tonight is Miss Michelle Shea Baker. We are very excited through our search led us to her. She has had a extensive background as well as an educator since 2001. She served as a speech pathologist, director of early learning. She's also most recently served as an assistant principal, and she has her current principal with her supporting her tonight, which is the first time I've ever seen that. So I think that speaks highly about the work that you are currently doing. She is currently also working on her doctoral work, I believe, and we are very excited to welcome her to the Ridge Family Center for Learning as our new principal for the 23-24 school year. So with that, I would accept a motion.
Okay, anybody?
I'll make that motion. Be it resolved that on the 12th day of June 2023, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education hereby approves the contract and appoints Michelle Shea Baker as principal of Ridge Family Center for Learning effective July 1st, 2023.
Then I'll second. Discussion?
I'll second it.
You want to discuss? Let Mardell second it. Mardell
will
wanted to second it.
I didn't hear her.
Okay, discussion?
I just want to say my nay vote, nothing against either candidate. I just want more insight into the process for those senior level leaders at the schools.
And happy to do that. And when we have those posted, I'm happy to engage in those conversations as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? No? All right, roll call.
Okay. Schumacher.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Espino, aye. Johnson.
Nay.
Mancilla.
Aye.
And Sager.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
And I'd also like to recognize all your family members that have come with you in full support tonight. So congratulations to you all. We're very excited to welcome both Brandy and Michelle to our administrative team. Congratulations. I would also like to say that you are welcome to leave as well, please. We will not accept that, think anything rudely of it. I know it's a late evening, so thank you.
And just a quick note, I would love the process as well, even though I have said I support your stand for, we just want to get more insight.
And I was sharing updates in our weekly as well, so please, anytime you see that, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely will. Thank you so much.
Okay, we need to go back now to 7.0, whoever's running the screen. Justin, okay, thank you.
If you see anybody outside, send them in.
Okay, so is it best if we open the hearing, then you explain what's going on, and then we
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I'll make an opening resolution on 7.0. Daisy, you got it? So the motion is that the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education meeting be opened on this date. Thank you, folks. June 12, 2023, for a public hearing on the e-learning plan for the 23-24, 24-25, 25-26 school years, and the secretary shall record the time as 6:54 p.m. Can we get a second on that?
I'll
Second.
Oh, no,
PR?
was that you?
Yep.
Okay, and then if you don't mind explaining, this is renewing the e-learning.
It's a
plan.
renewal of the e-learning plan. So when it first was implemented, District 59, I think right around the pandemic time, initiated its first e-learning plan. Those were allowed in the state of Illinois. They do require renewal every 3 years. So if this is an opportunity when we have emergency days, such as school closures due to weather-related incidents or otherwise, that we would be allowed to count a day of attendance following our e-learning plan, which is consistent with what we used previously. So this is an opportunity for the board to discuss, hold a public hearing on this, and otherwise renew our plan so that we can implement it for the next 3 years should we need to.
Okay, and then briefly, this is for incidences where we anticipate a closure. So if we know there's a big storm coming, we can prepare everybody, send them home with their devices and get everybody ready to go, right?
Correct. We would involve this as part of the decision-making process in the event of an emergency. So if it is a last-minute power outage closure and we know a lot of our families are without power, we may not want to opt for an e-learning day because obviously it requires devices. If it is something where we know a storm is coming and we anticipate that it's going to be too, extreme cold temperatures or extreme weather, and we can prepare our students who take their devices home on a nightly basis to implement that e-learning plan, that's part of the decision-making process. It's not a guarantee that every day would, that is an emergency day would be e-learning, but it is for those specific purposes.
And we've prepared for it, but never used it. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I
not
know
since
this
I have
winter
been
we
here.
sent devices home with kindergartners in anticipation of a storm that didn't
That
happen.
didn't come. Yes.
Okay.
So then, like, if I refresh my memory here, during the pandemic, this law was passed. School districts that wanted to do e-learning had to get their plan approved. And so then that's what we did. We had it approved. We did e-learning. We went through that whole process. And now, in order to have it in our back pocket, so to say, we just have to, by law, we don't hold this public hearing, we discuss it, and then it's approved. So then in the event of an emergency, we plan for it. We have those there. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And this was actually implemented in the state of Illinois prior to the pandemic. So there was actually 10% of districts that had approved e-learning plans prior to the pandemic that were able to just transition immediately. Those districts that did not have an approved e-learning plan then had to get one that was kind of approved like in an emergency status. So this kind of covers us moving forward. So it was something piloted and approved even prior to the pandemic.
So in the world of pre-pandemic education here in the district, we would have snow days. We would close. Nothing was done. No e-learning was done, and then all those snow days were just added to the end of the school year.
Correct.
Now we have the set date. We anticipate it'll be the last day of school each school year, and we can use these e-learning days if necessary in the event of an emergency or a closure.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a district wide. I think that's an important piece too. When only one or two, when less than the entire district has to close, you are not required to make up those days. If it is the entire district closure, then we are required to make up that day of learning.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm a big supporter of that option, especially having a child in a school. I actually think we should use it more, considering we didn't, right? So I love the fact that we do have the plan. A question about, considering that we are renewing it, have there been any major changes to the plan in the past year or right now?
Yes, I could speak to that. We really looked at the plan in its entirety, and the key components that must be in place based on the state requirements are all intact. The only changes we made were we took out some of the language that were around extended remote days, such as like the COVID closure, because this was under emergency at that time. So really it's like cleaned up, revised version that includes the clock hours needed, the expectations for staff, support. So it's almost identical as our previous plan. Just some of the COVID related terms are not necessary anymore.
And have we invested enough in teacher training, resource training on making sure that we do have, if that happens, that we do have an effective day, a school day?
Yes. So what we do, and we've been doing this for the last 2 years, even though we didn't use it, is at the beginning of the year, I will usually work with our administrative team to prepare their plans and review the e-learning plan. And they work with their buildings to create slides and make sure that teachers understand what they need to do, how they communicate with parents, so that it's prepared in advance, their process, so that should we have to enact an e-learning day, then they simply take the process and then the students are aware of what they're supposed to do. So we really think about it at the beginning of the year so that we're ready, so we're not caught off guard at the last minute.
Thank you.
Any other board questions? So since it's a public hearing, we have to also say, does anybody in the public want to speak on the e-learning plan? No, seeing nobody.
Can I ask a question since it's so hard for me to say no? Can I just ask it from here?
We're not supposed to allow questions. It's comments only.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
If you have a question about e-learning,
It's related to e-learning.
okay, then you can follow up with the superintendent.
Oh, no, can I make a comment?
If you want to make a comment, yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
do I need
Sure,
to go
yeah,
up
yeah.
there? Okay.
Same, pretend I reread that whole spiel about 3 minutes.
Yes, yes. Oh, I've done
I'll give you 3 minutes.
Yeah, so it's not really a question, it's just a comment. My kids went through 59, we're all done. It's right. But the last election day, there was a lot of concern about the schools being open and, asking if maybe one of these emergency days could be used. So I understand if you can't answer the question, but I just hope that if, depending on facts and circumstances in these days when threat levels can be high suddenly, I just hope that an e-learning day like this can be used in those situations, or not just election day, but other days where we think maybe it's not a safe environment to be in school. Can we just, use a day like this? So I just hope that everyone thinks about that. Thanks.
So thank you for your comment. You may want to ask that question because I know there are answers. Mardell, you have a comment?
I just want to comment to your question before you run away.
No,
I'm sorry.
Mardell.
Oh, I thought you were talking to TV. Okay.
I've been on election.
Mardell, let's keep it general because this is a public comment portion, so we're not supposed to reply.
So I shouldn't answer it?
No, I said,
can make it general.
follow up with Dr. Bresnahan. Dr. Bresnahan will answer it. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Kind of like that.
And if I can add a general statement that applies to the e-learning though, e-learning, and as we just discussed, the purposes are under those emergency services. So when we plan for election days or other days like that, that is controlled through our calendar, in which that would be something that the board would absolutely want to discuss. But really keeping our e-learning for emergency purposes would be the true intent of the day.
That makes sense. Just want to say thank you for the comment. Good reminder. That's all. That actually has been my concern when I was standing out there campaigning.
Okay. So seeing no more statements, we need to go to resolution number 2, and I'll make it again. Motion made by me that the hearing on the e-learning plan be closed. Secretary shall record the time as 7:02 PS. And then I need a second.
Second.
Okay, and then we need a roll call on it. For the, did we do the first one?
No.
Did we never do the opening one?
We did the opening.
I thought we did. No?
We did the opening one, but we didn't do.
Do you want me to make it now or after the vote?
Okay, so let's quickly go through and do the first one and then the second
Yeah,
one.
we needed to do a roll call for the first.
Everybody agree we opened it and we discussed it?
Yep.
Yes.
So I just
Just go.
Mhm.
Yep.
go.
We're gonna do it
Zach?
twice.
Yep, we're gonna do 2 in a row.
Okay,
That's on me.
Chesney,
Aye.
Zach,
Aye.
Espino, I, Johnson,
Aye.
Mancia,
All right.
Sager,
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay,
And
we
then
had the
now-
discussion, everything happened.
okay.
Now we're gonna close it.
To close it.
Okay, Zach.
Aye.
Espino, I, Johnson.
Aye.
Mancia, Sager,
Aye.
Schumacher. Schumacher
Mhm.
and Chesney.
Aye.
Mhm.
All right, that moves us on to section 8, discussion items. I'll note that 8.01 and 8.02 will have action at the next meeting.
Okay, I'm going to invite Dr. Perdomo to come up to lead our discussion, but I will introduce this as our world language curriculum adoptions, which we're bringing to the board for action next month. We're here to have the discussion tonight. As part of our ongoing curriculum review process, world languages was one of the content areas that was up for review. So we went through a process, and Dr. Perdomo will talk a little bit about that process and about what the staff have selected and some next steps for discussion. Thank you.
Good evening. So similar to our other adoption processes, our teachers were presented with 4 different resources in the world language field and to be able to identify what are some of the next steps we want to take forward. Our world language department here in District 59 has not had a curricular resource. So we were looking at something to really streamline us, to be able to align us also with our students' futures when they go to the high school and really trying to align them to that world readiness standards. So from there, we were able to decide on 2 that the teachers listened to those presentations. Then we decided on 2. They came into pilot and 8 out of the 10 teachers decided to pilot the resources. 2 couldn't. Actually, they were out on leave at that moment in time. So they were able to provide the input. All of them unanimously decided on Carnegie, which is Quechevre, Très Branché, which is for French, and then En Voz Alta for Spanish or Spanish speakers, which is fantastic. In the opportunity for them to be able to make this decision is because it does actually align with what District 214 is using as well. So that vertical articulation, I think, is going to be fantastic for our students to be able to move from being in Spanish or French in our district to also having that alignment then when they go to the high school to continue that path towards biliteracy if they choose to do that. And that's in French and in Spanish here in our district.
I have a question for you, Dr. Perdomo. What is, when we talk world languages department, the difference between the dual language department? Are they the same? Are they different? What are the differences?
So they're the same in the sense that they're the same in the sense our world language department starts in the junior high, so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Our dual language begins in kindergarten. The essence is we want our students to become bilingual and biliterate in both languages. That's the goal of dual language, and that would ultimately want to be the goal of a student that's wanting to take world languages. But sometimes students in the world language may not want it for that seal of biliteracy. They may want it to get that exposure, to learn the language, to really just grapple to see, is this something that I want to continue to pursue? So the world language opportunity is for students that did not choose the dual language path, really didn't want that as an elementary student for that biliteracy, but maybe at this point in their career want to be able to experiment what that is. The other opportunity for world languages is that we know that in the career and the futures, it's necessary and it's needed as they go to high school. So they want to potentially get the opportunity to learn it here and to see if it's something they want to pursue as they continue on their education.
And you mentioned that this is the first time that we have a curriculum for this. So staff, what were they doing before?
So in Spanish and for French, our teachers used a variety of different resources. This is the first time we have a curricular resource that's unison for all 3 schools. So they've been using a lot of different curriculum out there, but it wasn't uniform to one specific resource or vendor that we were utilizing, so there wasn't that uniformity. In our Spanish or Spanish speakers, it was very much tied to our dual language program, allowing our students to learn through a social studies lens more so. This opportunity allows our Spanish and Spanish speakers to really go towards that biliteracy pathway and align everything to the actual standards and the world readiness standards so that there's that alignment clearly to what is it that we want our students to be able to object when they get to that language piece.
Yeah, and I think that's sorry if I'm hogging the microphone. I think they're, speaking with teachers in the past, it was like they were getting stuff on Google and they were translating things on their own. And you would go to one classroom and they were doing one thing, and one classroom they were doing the other. And this now does the work for them, which should have been the case in the past, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be that uniqueness that teachers are going to want to give their craft. That's part of, the beauty of teaching is that we want teachers to be able to add their craft and some of their expertise in that language. But what it does definitely do is bring that uniformity. It has common formative assessments and summative assessments so that our teachers can actually have that alignment. How are our students doing across the district in French and Spanish? If a student moves between a school, we know where they pick up and where they can continue to move forward with. So it really just allows that alignment. And then again, beautifully from our district to 214, if we continue that work in partnership with them, we'll start to see that alignment, and our students hopefully can progress through those levels of language if that's their path and they want to choose to continue to do that.
Cost wise, is that 167,000 total over 6 years, or is that a yearly fee?
No, so total over the 6 years, and that also will include so that's for digital licensing for 6 years, and then with recommendations from teachers, they would like a class set of textbooks to have on hand for those students that do prefer a textbook versus the platform online.
Do you know if we pay that all up front, or is that paid yearly?
So it is paid up front.
Yeah, we budgeted for it in our next school year's budget. So pending board approval, we'll go ahead and make that purchase in July.
And for professional development, there's initial professional development. Is there ongoing opportunities for that as well?
Yeah, so we in the proposal, we did put one onboarding professional development session for all of our teachers, and then we also allocated for 3 additional ones throughout the school year. And then even beyond that, we would definitely be looking at opportunities to continue to explore those opportunities for our teachers. I think that's something that our world language department is really wanting and thriving on. So I'm hoping that we can continue to provide those opportunities for them.
And just real quick, so there's 10 teachers who teach world language?
Yes.
And 8 got to pilot it, and all 8 wanted the program that you're recommending, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
All 8, one kind of was on the fence on between the two, but this by far was outlined as the best
And
program.
what is, so is this like a separate class a full class that they take? Or I think when I was in school, it was like half of my lunch period, I would go to like a language class.
Yeah, so it is an elective, so it's part of their elective. If they choose to be in one of these language classes, then it is an elective instead of one of the electives that they would take.
All right, thank you very much. And
All right,
that'll be an action item next time, right? That brings us to 8.02, which is press policy updates, which you all should have gotten a copy of the recommendations and that sort of thing. So do you want to just introduce it, and then we can?
Yeah, so we regularly get updates from Press Policy, which is the organization that we subscribe to that vets all of the policies. It goes through legal review at federal and state level, and then those recommendations are made to the board. Then we review them across our teams to see which ones we, if they need to be reviewed, revised, and then we will either say recommended for change, or if we want to recommend them for just approval. Some of them are just required to be reviewed on a regular cycle. So what we had talked about is our current process is really, we do that review internally, then it's shared with the board. The board reviews that. We do a first reading at our first meeting, and then we do a second reading and approval at a next meeting. So we talked about having our policy committee, which I know we'll talk about committees a little later tonight, and having that opportunity to discuss those in a little more depth at those committee meetings.
And then just to clarify too, when we say we present it to the board, we're talking the State Board of Education, right? This is are these what we
These
vote
are
on, what the
our
delegate votes on?
No.
So when we have our big policy manual, every year the laws change, right? And so IASB has a legal group that goes through, updates all the notations for those laws, any changes in policy that have to be made for various reasons, they go through and do that, and they put out this press update twice a year minimum, right?
Okay.
And it's more, well, we act on it twice a year minimum, right? And so the idea is then we refresh our entire policy manual, and sometimes those policies are just, there's a 5-year review cycle.
Okay, I was confusing it with the annual conference, the delegate vote.
No, this is the standard policy manual. So I think the way it worked the first 2 years I was on the board was that we would just take the SLT recommendations and all kind of read them. I would prefer that we have a standing policy committee that reviews them with the SLT. Just as you saw for this particular group, there wasn't anything too like in depth, but sometimes there'll be questions on them, like you have an option to choose one policy versus another, and I would like a policy committee to run through that before it comes to us, and then point out those issues right ahead of time, if everybody thinks that sounds reasonable. So I think for this time, we're just going to follow the old procedure of you've all had the packet from the SLT. We've all read through it. This is our first discussion of it. If there's anything you noticed in there you want to discuss now, that's fine. Otherwise, we can move to just have it voted on next meeting. Does anybody have anything they want to call out from Press 111 policy update, this particular one? No? Okay. All right, that moves us on to 8.03, Brentwood facility update. This is just discussion. There's no action being taken.
Yes, this is just discussion because this is an ongoing piece. And so we just put together a presentation. Some of it is repetitive information. So I'm not going to spend too much time on any of these slides, but if the board wants to review question, please slow me down and feel free to interrupt. But this is very timeline sensitive. So we want to make sure that we are adhering to that and keeping these conversations out in the open so that we can move through it. So as you know, we held an event for our Brentwood family community with staff and with families to really talk about what our current conditions are related to our enrollment, the space utilization, in particular around the use of our portable classrooms that were installed last year, and looking at our school and property boundaries as well as our programming. So moving on, we went through what those 10-year enrollment trends look like. As you can see, we are exactly where we were 10 years ago. So this is not a new issue, but the way we are teaching and the way we are structuring our classrooms has changed over the years. So we've added a lot more positions, a lot of human resources to each of our schools, and adults take up space. So that is part of our issue, as well as looking at class sizes, which class sizes have changed over the years. So I think last year we had a class size that got up to 34 at Brentwood. This year we were well within, closer to our district averages, and we are projecting next year, if we are able to maintain our portable classrooms, to be able to maintain those class sizes as well. And the portable classrooms also allowed us to have our art and music programs in a steady, consistent space throughout the year. So moving on from there, we just talked about those enrollment trends. Again, moving on, I'm just going quickly. This is all repetitive from presentations that we've shared previously. You could see we peaked at 98% in 18-19. We're at 88%, but if you ask anyone from Brentwood, it feels like 110% at capacity. Moving on, really looking at our student spaces, those classrooms, opportunities for small group learning, the dedicated art and music space. All of those instruments that they talked about earlier tonight require a space. If you're doing music on a cart, art on a cart, those opportunities are very limited. That dedicated space for physical education, which we also expanded this year, and then our learning resource center, our library materials, and then even external space playgrounds for our students, which are being upgraded this summer. So looking also additionally, we can't neglect our staff who need some of that dedicated workspace as well, that we've added these positions and expanded, as well as just recognizing that Brentwood doesn't currently even have a staff lunchroom for their staff to have their lunches. Then we have to also look at it from a safety and accessibility perspective, how the ebb and flow out of the building, the arrivals, dismissals, just the traffic there, as well as access to parking when we have events, et cetera. Those were just some images that we shared of how space is really cramped there. And then the whole idea of using our portable classrooms, it is a temporary solution. It was never designed to be a permanent fixture, but it did allow for us to have those dedicated spaces.
Has there been any development on that?
Yes, so I'm going to give you an update on that.
Okay,
Thank you,
good.
Mardell. I'm getting there in 1 second. So the school boundaries, this is one of the mechanisms that we have that impacts enrollment, how we draw our boundary lines across our schools. So you can see how that looks here. Nothing new information. Moving on, also looking at our property boundaries directly to the east of the school. The green space is actually owned by Mount Prospect Park District. Our school boundaries, though, reside within the Des Plaines Village, so that's why we are working with them. So moving on to there, what can we really do? So from a board perspective, what do we have access to address the issues at Brentwood? Adjusting boundaries, renovating or constructing spaces, adjusting our class sizes, and relocating programs. Moving on from there, when we held our family and staff event at Brentwood, It was very interactive. We allowed anyone who wanted to provide an exit slip, a little note that they could write to us as they were leaving the program. So 37 people shared exit slips with us, and we kind of themed them out. What were the top 5 themes that were mentioned? You can see the top one that was mentioned was the desire to expand the facilities. We had next highest was not removing our dual language program, not moving services and programs, which would align also with the dual language, moving students and the challenges that that would create. Families were not interested in that shared that. And then we did get some that shared just the appreciation of the opportunity to share feedback. When we looked at the 4 areas, we also did what was called a jam board. So we really allowed people in their small groups to just add all of their different thoughts about what are the impacts as we look at these different opportunities. So the question was, how would adjusting boundaries impact our school community? So we talked about the top 5 themes that arose from that interactive opportunity was really ensuring, changing schools and the impact on social emotional needs of our students, not wanting family to be moved, thinking about when we adjust boundaries, it doesn't just impact one school, it impacts all the other schools whose boundaries also get adjusted. Then really looking at the diversity. So when we change the boundaries and it changes the students that attend there, what does that impact on the diversity and the makeup of our students? And then the concern about friend groups being split up if we were to adjust boundaries. When we look at impacts of renovation and construction, the overall theme that came out is why can't we build up? So that is something that we're looking at through our architect study as well, is do we have the opportunity at Brentwood to build up if that was an option? We know that if we were to expand space, that could potentially result in more traffic. We would have to go through construction and what happens to our students during that construction phase. We do have a beautiful courtyard space. I think from some families, we heard about utilizing and converting courtyard space into classroom space. But then I know we heard from a number of staff about the impact of losing natural light when you take up the courtyard. So just points to ponder. And then working with the park district for that green space to see if there are opportunities for expanding Brentwood. Impacting class sizes. This one really, I think overall was very consistent in the feedback about wanting to maintain those lower class sizes and remain consistent with the rest of the district. I don't think anyone wanted to increase class sizes or move backwards towards larger class sizes. And then lastly was the impacts of relocating programs. This has been one of the most frequently used mechanisms in District 59. And this overwhelmingly from our families and our staff came out very strongly about not wanting to move programs out of Brentwood and how it would impact their diversity. It would remove the dual language program, families having to choose between their school where they reside and a program that their child may need. It's a short-term solution, as well as just not being a positive for the students or the families to have to move based on their program. So an update on the Display and Zoning Commission. I've included this in our weekly memos as well, but on May 24th, I had the opportunity to present this information to the Zoning Commission in Des Plaines, where it was a very thorough presentation and a pretty extensive question and answer portion of the evening. The audio recording of that evening is available if anyone wants to hear exactly what was asked. But the Zoning Commission did recognize that this has been ongoing for a number of years. I did indicate that we are committed as a district, including our board, to finding a solution and that we would not come back in a year and request an additional variance. That was a question that I was directly asked. If we were to begin construction in any way, we would be allowed to extend the use of our portable classrooms if active construction were there and required the mobile classrooms to be there. So June 19th is when that recommendation from the Zoning Commission, which was a unanimous 7-0 in favor of recommending it, that will be presented on June 19th to the Des Plaines full village board, and I will be there that evening as well to answer any possible questions. They may take a vote. They may not. That may just be the first round, and then they would go to the July meeting. So we are waiting on that outcome of this vote in order to determine whether or not we'll have the mobile classrooms for the 23-24 school year. So based on the input that we have received so far, what I would like for the board to begin to consider and to think about is, out of those 4 things that we really talked about, we see 2 viable solutions coming forward. And I don't mean holistic solution plans, but really 2 mechanisms that we would want to consider in building a solution would be looking at adjusting our boundaries. And then I just gave some points for our group to consider. How does that impact, if we moved a particular boundary, does that really alleviate the need for the number of classrooms that we have? You really have to look at who lives within each of those areas, what ages are those students, et cetera. Balancing the demographics, as well as how does it impact other schools. And then the second one would be, if we move to the next slide, would be renovation and construction. So is it possible to expand upwards? What is the impact on our parking, our green spaces, and our traffic flow? How would we want to involve community partners that would be impacted in this process, as well as increased capacity at Brentwood? What does that do to our other schools within the district as well? The changing of class sizes and the moving of programs did not seem to be viable options within at least the realm of feedback that we had received. And so those would be the 2 things that the board will want to engage in conversations around. This is our anticipated timeline. So April, we did our family engagement session. May, we began our architectural educational alignment assessment. And the summer, that data will continue to be gathered by the architect group, and they will be providing a full report in the fall to the board and to our community. And then that will give us the fall months to really discuss potential solutions and decide on a long-term plan, so that by spring and summer of 2024, we are preparing and potentially implementing. Not saying that that is going to be a 1-year plan. It may be a 2 to 3 year plan that gets done in stages. I think all of that, but the determining and having a direction so that we can head into the 24-25 school year with a plan is the goal and objective in front of us.
And could it be the sort of thing where there's a phase 1 in the upcoming summer, and then
Absolutely.
If there's additional things that need to be done, depending on the lift, like you said, ongoing construction can't really happen during the school year.
Right, correct.
I have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Have you considered the fact that Frost, Brentwood, and Devonshire are very close together? Is there any way that we can use the other 2 schools if there is an adjustment that needs to be made in the numbers?
Absolutely. I think we have to look at all the schools in as a whole to really see what that impact is, because we have schools that are way under in terms of that utilization. So if we're expanding one building, it's just an awareness and an acknowledgement that if we do that, what does that impact elsewhere?
Right.
And are we best utilizing other spaces? For sure.
My comment was going to be, like, if we look at adjusting boundaries, it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we usually think of it like next year, I guess, like you're going to this school. Is there a way, if we do that, to not impact any current students? So you kind of start small with the incoming kindergarten class. And I know, so I think it might be, because when I'm looking at that chart over time, it goes up and down a lot. So to move things around, it may look different by the time you fully implement that new boundary in year 5. Or maybe if it's like a new student moving in, they automatically go to the new boundary. So just like, I don't want to look at it where like the next year, all these changes take place. Is there a way to like gradually roll it out to not impact anybody currently associated with their current
I
school?
think there's lots of ways that the board can consider how we make any changes, whether you phase them in. I think the one thing in looking at that is always siblings. So if you have an incoming kindergartner who has a sibling in the older grade, that's where we run into some slight issues. But yes, you can phase it in. You can grandparent in a group, and you can do it lots of different ways.
And then my other question, when you look at class size, if I am co-teaching in a class because it's a large class size, I'm not sure if we do that. Does that count? Is it the physical classroom that counts as the class size, or is it the teacher to pupil ratio?
We do not do co-teaching at the elementary for our general education or dual language classrooms.
But if we did, is class size based on the number of teachers in that classroom, or is it based on like the actual physical classroom?
I think we would probably have to present it both ways because you want to look at the number of bodies within a room and the limitations of that. But we do not currently implement a co-teaching model to alleviate class sizes.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, like, it would be very I wish we could do this. I don't think we can, but I wish we could do this. Asking another school community that is not impacted by this for like comments on what they would recommend, because they're not emotionally connected to it, right? They're seeing it objectively, and that's the way we should be doing it. Seeing it objectively to say the best solution here is this, because none of these solutions is 100% perfect, because everything is like a pull and a tug. You're gonna build space. Where do we put the kids? You're gonna expand. We run out of space. We have to lease from the park district, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes that's why I'm kind of thinking, like, what would be the best way to get this input, so parents can look at it objectively and say, what is the best thing we can do for these kids, not necessarily what's the best thing we can do for my kid, or my student. Because like everything that we talked about today, put yourself in those shoes. If you're a teacher and you don't have a break room, and we saw some of those teachers were here today that don't have a break room, like how does that impact your workday? Teachers from Brentwood that tell me they don't have a place to park. They don't have a parking garage, and they got to park down the street every day. It's like all of those little things, or kids receiving services in the hallway, because there's no space. Schools in our district have large LRCs that have maker spaces in them, and here we don't have space for that here. So it's some kids are benefiting just based on where their parents bought a house compared to other kids, even though they should all be benefiting exactly the same. But it's hard. It's hard to figure out what that best solution is going to be, but we have to look at it objectively as what is the absolute best thing we can do for each one of these kids.
I agree. And one thing I would like to add, though, is that I think we do need to be empathetic toward the kids, especially because we're not even halfway through a curriculum implementation. So just going forward, I'm going to probably look at solutions that are going to give the kids the most stability possible so that curriculum implementation can be really, really successful. Can we build up?
The architects will give us information on that as part of their.
Yeah, but let me add, because on the building question, because some of the parents when at that event, that was one of the things that was discussed. Maybe Ron, Mr. O'Connor, this is a question for you if you know it offhand. If hypothetically we were to build a second floor on a building, would all the taxpayers in the district be responsible for that, or only the ones that live in that particular?
No, that comes from the district funds. It does not. We do not separate out by individual schools.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ron, beat you to it.
Building new or onto, which is new, is not the best thought in the first place. That would be our last thought, because that's very expensive.
Yeah. And that's what I wonder, because a lot of our built, I mean, Brentwood was built in the 60s, I believe, going off memory here. And I wonder if a lot of our buildings at the time, that's just the way schools were built. And I wonder how are new elementary schools being built today, like a brand new construction elementary school? Is it 2 stories, 3 stories versus the large spaced out property that?
I think it varies on the lot structure and size, whether it's within a community, whether it's where it's positioned within that community. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's up in terms of dual language, because kindergarten and first grade have been moved out, right? They've been moved to Frost. Is that something we're looking at is that program moving to Frost then, or are we looking to move those kids back to Brentwood?
So again, I think that was a temporary solution to try to alleviate that and just to consolidate. So, the program was moved out of Devonshire, as well as started just that class to alleviate some class space. So we added 2 mobiles as well as moved kindergarten and still needs space. And now Frost, we had to add 2 portables as well. So I think that was a very short-term thing, but there is no, I think from the staff and the families, it was very challenging. And the goal, at least I think from the staff and from our leadership perspective, is that we want students who reside within a school boundary to the greatest extent possible to be able to attend their neighborhood school without having to make forced choices due to programming needs. So that would be the hope, that we would create a plan that would allow for every child that resided within that boundary to be able to attend their home school to the greatest extent possible.
And then, sorry, I would just add, so I know we're just in the options portion, and some of these seem like short-term options, but I would also like to think more long-term. Because when I look at the map, if we keep chopping it up, like there's a splotch here that goes to this school over here, and a completely unassociated area over here that also goes to that school. Maybe the solution isn't necessarily adding to one of our current schools. Maybe it's a completely new school in a more centrally located area for students in certain areas. So I think that's something we should also keep in the back of our mind.
Yeah, so for me, it's like if we were to build up, would that mean then we have more space? Would that mean that we will be able to have more staff in there? Will then also keep impacting our parking space? So it's like a little chain, right?
And I think that's the reason why, like, my big concern is that we're taking summer to gather data. Okay, great. Data gathering is important and takes time. But then fall for architect report, and we could accelerate some things, just not because we want to build quicker. I agree. We shouldn't. We disrupt kids. Absolutely not. It's just I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more discussion, looking at different options. Whether it is what do we do with that little spot that's somewhere over there that is technically, logically, maybe we should go somewhere else, or do we build something new, or do we especially negotiate with the city or the park district? I think those things take time, and with this timeline, I fear comes next spring, we will be rushing again. So I think we might need to see which portions can be accelerated and which we can start sooner.
Yeah, and I think it's good to probably look at it in bite-sized chunks because really the forced timeline is just, what do we do when those portable classrooms are gone? So the only thing we really need to solve for 24-25 is reducing by enough number or enough size or something so that we can remove those portables and be able to still accommodate our students within there. So that's why I'm saying it could be like a phased in piece. Like year 1, we're going to do this, knowing that year 2, year 3, we're developing a longer term plan that impacts the larger system. Because I think you're right. Like if we're talking about building a brand new school and renovating others or whatever we do, that is going to be very extensive in thought process and time, community input, as well as just building and dollars and potential referendum and all of that.
Mm-hmm. The April community event I thought was very successful. I thought there was over 100 parents, probably, give or take, translated instantly into languages. Parents could vote and respond right away on a phone, on an app. Are there plans to do more of those as the options become, whittled down? Not necessarily that this is the final option, but a continuing dialogue with those parents.
Yes, absolutely. I think even through the educational alignment study, we're involving teachers and staff, and then they're going to be talking to the park districts. So I think every piece along the way is going to have portions and opportunities for for input. And then it's expanding that as we look at some solutions that impact other schools, and then broadening that awareness and interactivity for our fuller community.
I think we have to look at this in the long term and a big picture, because things change every year. When my kids were in school, when my daughter was at Grove, there were 1,200 students. It was packed, absolutely overloaded. 2 people in every locker. It was really crowded. But we made it through. We had to adjust, and because if we had added on, we would have had building left over the following couple of years or whatever. You can't plan for every problems every year. You have to work the problems out.
I think Juliet Lowe is a good example of that. There was an extension built on Juliet Lowe, and now it's probably the least utilized building
You're right.
in the district.
Yeah. And that's why I think the portables are wonderful. As long as we can use the portables, that's a big help.
So a quick comment about the event that happened. I'm very happy that it happened. I think it was a great success. But when we're creating new events, I definitely want similar. I think that's a great idea, opportunity for the community to impact. I would just ask that we make sure we don't anchor comments before surveys, because it does skew the results one way or the other. I think because I know there have been some emotional comments made during some of the questions that definitely automatically led respondents towards, oh yes, we can't do X, Y, or Z. And that's just for me being an observer there, not as a board member, but as an observer and participant in the community.
Okay. I think I have 3 comments on this. The first of which is I'm glad to see that we're trying to stay away from moving programs, because I think that's the Band-Aid that's been used excessively in the past in the district, and it moves one group of students consistently more than others. And so I think finding a holistic approach that tries to avoid that is really good. I would say, as far as I heard the comment, Phil, in the courtyard, let's, to the greatest extent possible, I know the architects will look at this, do not make windowless classrooms. Teachers will hate it. Students will be miserable. You want to avoid that at all costs. Like I don't think it's a deal breaker if somebody needs a windowless classroom, but it's one of those things you want to avoid. Speaking of staff retention, you don't want to be stuck in a windowless room with a group of first graders, right? And then I just wanted to comment that of the 2 sort of things you discussed, the boundary changes and the reorganization / construction, it's not all one or the other, right? It's possibly a combination of the 2 in a way to sort of balance the needs and of the space versus trying to have the least impact on that school and neighboring schools, right? All right. Any other questions,
Just
comments?
a quick comment, May 2023 Architect Educational Alignment Assessment. Why are we changing our architects? Our architect was Leggett, and then we had another one in between, and now we've got Wold. I don't know. What
No,
Wold
our
came-
architect has stayed the same. This is a partner that we're just contracting with for this specific study.
Wold
Mhm.
was a partner of whom?
We're partnering with Wold Architects for this specific study. They are not our architect of record.
Okay, they're just for this particular study.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brentwood was built in 1963.
Thank you.
I just also want the board to consider that it sounds like well, I won't make any assumptions yet, but if we are to do a boundary change, there needs to be a comprehensive transition plan for the kids and for the teachers. I'm not going to vote for anything that is like a cut and dry. You go here this year, next year you don't go here. That is not right to do to our kids. So if we're doing a boundary change, it needs to be very comprehensive, include a grandfathering in, probably a delayed timeline or a timeline that is not happening all at once, if we are considering that. Again, my vote will go for the solution that moves the fewest number of kids during a curricular overhaul.
Okay.
What is are we going to do monthly updates of this, Brentwood? What's the plan for that?
Yeah, so really the major piece will be when the architect report is done and ready to be presented. But absolute, we can continue to have discussions, and I am seeking guidance from the board as to what do you need in order to consider a solution. That is what I need clearly from the board as a whole, so that we can really say, okay, here's all of the pieces of data that you need in order to consider this. Here's all of the, the what ifs and the impacts and the data pieces. The more we can get those questions ahead of time as our considerations, and come to some consensus on, would be really helpful. So we're not trying to just have, 12 different plans that we're kind of shooting around.
Yeah, and I think it's important to hear from, like, the way Zach says, of what she likes, what she doesn't, what I like, what I don't, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because we should all be very, very, very clear with that, because we as a board are not creating this plan. We are going to approve it, but Dr. Bresnahan and team here are the ones that need to actually craft it, and it's very hard. It's very hard for them to cook if we don't give them the recipe of what we want or what our tastes are, et cetera, et cetera.
Let me add a +1 on Zach requirements, definitely. One thing that I would want to make sure that we see more for me to approve whatever way it would go is the communication piece. That's why I was so happy that we had the event that happened. I think it was a step in the right direction. And I definitely want to make sure we have more opportunities for the community input and two-way communication, whether it would be more events like that, which I think we should have some, whether it would be the town hall meetings, especially with such a major decision where there is a two-way communication. I think that needs to happen.
Jill, can you remember what the name of the meetings were that we had, or maybe somebody from the administration, when we used to have the open meetings here where we could just discuss different problems and actions that were?
That was before my time, so that would have
Before your
been,
time?
was this the committee?
We've had a few town halls
What was the
that,
town
town halls, I believe we
Those
define
town hall
those as
meetings.
town halls.
They were very successful.
Pre-COVID, we had a few of those, yes.
Yeah, they were very successful.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we're going to be looking into. Okay, moving on. We've got some action items we got to go back to here. We did 9.01, 2, 3. We're on 4. Yep.
I'll make this one here. 9.04.
Right? No. That's it?
No, I'm just reading. It's a long one.
Yeah.
I'm mute. I'm reading it. It's a long one. Be it resolved that on the 12th day of June 2023, I'm not going to read the whole thing. The Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education resolves that the fiscal year for Community Consolidated School District 59, Cook County, Illinois, be and hereby is established commencing on July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024. Be it resolved further as set forth in this motion along with the public notice.
I will second. All right, any discussion on the public notice? This is just standard, have to set a date and time and publicize that we'll do it, and then it'll be another one of those. Within a meeting, you have a moment when the public can speak on the budget, and then stop. Okay, then we need a roll call on that.
Okay, I forgot where I left off last time, but
9.04.
no, yeah, but I like
Mm.
the order. So I'm just gonna start with
Mhm.
Zach. Aye. Espino, aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Mancia.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
And Chesney. Okay, and the motion passes.
That moves us on to 9.05. From the Facilities and Finance Committee meeting, we decided some of the things we could just move into the consent agenda because we discussed them last time. This is one that's sort of spelled out as it's the board's job to direct this to be done. So we just kept it in the action items here separately. So how far down can we skip? Not very far.
And these are all the items we discussed with
Yeah.
Mr. O'Connor last month.
I guess I can make the motion. Do I have to read all of this? Where is this?
Here's section 1.
Yeah,
As presented.
we approved the transfer from interest of investment in the debt service fund to, where's this one going? Educational fund for the year 22-23 as spelled out in the motion.
Mhm.
There we go.
Second.
Lucas, okay, we need a roll call.
Good. Can I just ask a quick question?
Or discussion? Yeah, go ahead.
So this is interest earned on our investments?
That is correct.
And when we budget each year, do we rely on a certain amount of that to come through? Or like if it was 0 one year, is that unexpected or what do we normally?
That would be unexpected, but it's typically since due to municipal laws, we have to do it within bonds and whatnot. So we pretty much have an idea of what we're getting. However, this past year, we've just laddered over 5 years, and we received a good amount than usual. So, for example, for this one, in the debt service, you have $61,000 of interest. And in years past, it's been less than that.
Okay. And so I know we have this might be a discussion for a different topic, but like our outstanding bonds and the debt service that we pay on those, maybe in the future we can apply this plus some to that. I don't know if I was reading it correctly, but it looked like over $1 million a year in interest we pay, or
So as of now, we're about $1.5 million in interest for this year. That has not happened. In fact, the prior year I think it was about 400,000. I have the list number somewhere, but that is something that can be discussed.
Well, but I thought the way our bond was structured, we can't pay it off.
No, but you can pay it down so that it doesn't go to the tax base if you bait it.
Okay.
Have we made changes?
No.
Or we haven't made any changes? This
No
is the way
changes.
we've always done it. Okay,
Correct.
good.
All right, roll call.
Okay. Days.
Espino, aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Mancia.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next item. Same thing for transferring interest to the working cash fund. Can I get a motion? Anybody else want to do it? or-
I'll make the motion. Keep this.
If you just go to the section 1, 2, 3, right
Mhm.
there. That's the active.
Hold on a second here. I'm reading it on my side. All right. Whereas the Board of Education has determined that it is in the best interest of the district that 100% of the 2022-2023 interest income from the working cash fund be transferred to the operations and maintenance fund as presented in this motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that one.
All right. Any discussion on that item? No. All right, roll call.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mancia.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes.
All right, that brings us to 9.07 and a donation to the ELC from SWANCC, which I never know how they pronounce that. Collection swearing. Somebody want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Do I start with be it resolved?
Yeah, you can just do the beer result.
Be resolved that on the 12th day of June 2023, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the donation from the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County in the amount of $743.20 to the Early Learning Center.
Second.
Wait, what?
Either one of us, I don't care.
Please, ladies.
Do we know
Both were
what
thinking
caused the
about it.
donation? Like where what the relationship is, or yeah? No, well, we appreciate
Do we
it.
know what it's for?
Well, it's for assistance with refuse and recycling at the Early Learning Center, and it's something after seeing this come through that we'll be looking at for all of our buildings.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions, discussion? No, then we can do roll call.
Mancia,
Aye.
Sager,
Aye.
Schumacher,
Aye.
Chesney,
Aye.
Zach,
Aye.
Espino, I, Johnson.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes.
Thank you for money. Okay, that brings us to section 10, superintendent reports.
So I believe I'm going to kick things off with very interestingly, just last month in May, Harvard and Stanford released some information that they've defined as the Education Recovery Scorecard. And what they did was look at state testing like our IAR in math and reading from before the pandemic, so 2018-19, and then to last year's data, 21-22, where we had the most normal year after a couple of years. Through their processes, I believe they looked at close to 8,000 school districts across the country and tried to develop some structures and formula to say, how have school districts done over that period of time before and after? What was interesting to see for us, keep going, Justin, good job. This is the math data. What you'll see on the bottom is look at how good he is. Basically, what they ended up looking at was what kind of growth did school districts see? If you look below District 59, that's about 5,000 school districts total. All of those districts had negative growth from a month to up to 2.5 years. What's exciting from our perspective, the District 59 actually grew. The 0.2 really translates to months, 2 months over that same period of time. And what's even more interesting from my perspective, at least, is, that's the year we adopted a new math curriculum. So as we move to a standards-based, research-based math curriculum that we implemented, our staff implemented quite well and still are, we saw a change in our results from before the pandemic when we did not have that curriculum. And as we start to compare, you don't see a lot of school districts across the country who had positive growth. So it's a nice reinforcement of the work of our staff, of the curriculum that's in place over that period of time. On the reading side, and don't move, Justin, stay right there. On the reading side, we actually saw a negative 0.1, so a 1-month loss over that period of time. A lot of school districts are also on that negative side. So while we want to be positive, we didn't lose as much as many districts. And what's very interesting if you want to dig into the website, you can literally compare to any school district in the country as long as they had to stay testing over that period of time. So the document I attached, I just basically looked at 50 districts surrounding the area to see how the district compared. And there are others. There are a few. I think there's a Northbrook district that had like 5.5 months gain. I want to say Downers Grove had about 3 months gain over that period of time, but most of the districts, which is understandable, lost ground. And I think the reinforcement that our curriculum work is on a path, especially when you compare across the country over that period of time, is a nice reinforcement of the work that's occurring here in the district, and really an interesting perspective. Their issue, we haven't used the term learning loss. We tried, we switched that term to accelerating learning, but really their research is digging into the long-term impact of the pandemic on school districts. And some of their research even shows whether it's race, ethnicity, percent of free and reduced, pretty much every school district lost ground, no matter if you were a rich district, a poor district. As you can see, it represents really well just how impactful that piece was, and thought that would be important to share with the group. We've been sharing this with our administrative group, and now it's out to the community and staff.
I would point out this data is after only 1 year of the math implementation.
This is year one, yes.
We're lagging a year behind.
Yes, seeing some of the work they've done in the past, hopefully they'll add this year's data into that mix to see what that looks like over time. So all districts can see the impact, but we'd love to see ours, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very impressive when you look at where we stand, where the little finger is pointing at the red dot. Every school to the right of that has a larger percentage of free and reduced lunch students, and there's not many, so you take in all those factors into account when we look at this type of data, and it is impressive.
Like I said, it's a great reinforcement for the work and effort that's occurring in the district by staff, of course, by our kids who are doing that work. And this is really connected to grades 3 through 8, because that's the testing grades. Thank you.
This next piece in the superintendent's report, I will take. Unfortunately, Ben is not able to be with us, but just an update. And I know he's been updating the board along the way, but we have an RFP out for our new phone system that we discussed last month. We are going to, some of the pieces got delayed just to further clarification along the RFP. So we will actually be coming back with additional updates to the board at our July 10th meeting. So we will be looking at an implementation over winter break. Which will actually allow a little bit more time for preparation and support for our staff as we go through that implementation. So more updates will be coming on that.
And I'd like to bring an update with the educational facility study. So the district has been working with WOLD. It kind of alludes going back to what Mr. Mancia said about having a third party, having a set of eyes on someone who has not worked on our buildings so that it would be impartial. A lot of staff have been interviewed. A lot of them brought lists on behalf of other staff as well with concerns or ideas. We've walked through buildings. They've seen student flow as well, how they go from class to class. But they're not done yet, especially when looking through a safety lens. So we're still continuing to look at our buildings to make sure that anything that we can think of is going to be stopped. So it's been doing a great job, as well as what we need to do curricularly to make sure that our buildings work for our kids.
Okay. All right. So next is a board and superintendent committees. So this is where we need to go through a list and figure out which board committees we're interested in sitting on and contributing to. And then there's also some outside representation that we need for board members. So I don't know if you want to go through.
Sure. So just looking at this document, really the ones that are highlighted in the yellow color are our board committees, where we would look at having board representation. And then you can see the meeting frequency and time. So this is where the board can discuss and give input. But we talked at the last Finance and Facilities Committee about having that on a monthly basis, still continuing the 1 week before the board meeting, but switching the time to 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. So that will continue. If we could scroll back up just a little bit. I'm sorry, Justin. So the board member assignment, we would want to identify which board members will be serving on that committee. And we'll go through all of them before everyone makes their final selections. The next one is our Behavioral Intervention Committee. So this really covers our school safety and discipline. There will be an internal committee that will run on an ongoing basis that's really more of an action team, but the board committee will really be about reporting out on these data points. And we're looking at 2 times per year and holding those immediately preceding a regular board meeting. So now that we'll be switching to 7 o'clock, we could meet at 6 o'clock or 6:30, whatever we'd like. And that would take place 2 times a year. That would allow for all board members to be in attendance if they so chose. And then to start our regular meetings at 7 o'clock. So we don't really need to identify members who are going to serve on that, but we would want to identify the specific time that we would start. And then scrolling down, we have our board policy. So that's what we referred to earlier. So when we get those press releases and need to do those reviews of policies for first reading, we would open up our board policy committee. Again, that would be immediately preceding a regular board meeting. And again, that gives all board members access and opportunity to be a part of that process. Then we have the insurance and employee wellness, that we would want to have at least one representative, no more than two, that does meet 7 times per year from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. is what we currently has been the past practice. We had one board member who served on that. That is really an internal committee to review and make recommendations for staff benefits. So that is not necessarily like a a broad, we don't need community participation per se.
And I think the board member there is mainly as an observer that's required through the negotiated agreement.
Yes.
You're not really doing work, you're just kind of being aware of what's going on, reporting back to the board.
The ones that are not in yellow are the superintendent's committee. So those are overseen by myself or members of our SLT. So we have our safety group. So again, we would want to have no more than 2 board members who would participate in our safety committee. Then looking at school nutrition and quality, and we're actually looking at maybe potentially combining that with our wellness committee, and that's required just to meet once a year to review our nutrition and services. We have communications that would be overseen by Ben Gray, and then again that wellness piece that is overseen by Dr. Degree, and that we would be looking at maybe combining, and that's just held 1 time per year.
Yeah, because what's the difference between that and
Not
school
much.
nutrition and quality?
Yeah, not much. There's some that just has to be reported out to different agencies,
Mm-hmm.
and one is really more for that internal purpose. So we would look at how we might combine those. But again, that's a superintendent's committee that we would ask for participation from no more than 2 board members. Then there's the outside organizations that we would want to see if there's board members who would be willing to represent. So we have EdRed, we have NSSEO, and if we scroll down a little farther, we have the IASB North Cook Division, as well as a liaison, as you heard earlier, for our District 59 Education Foundation.
Cindy, could the board members get a copy of this?
Yeah, we can print out a hard copy, yes. Yeah, we have a link to this in the agenda, so everybody can read through it.
I want a paper copy.
And then we'll get you a paper copy as well. For the outside representatives, we would want one person who's the designated person for that organization, and then an alternate just in case, sort of thing. For the board committees, those are really our committees where we should be sitting in, and whoever's assigned to them should be reporting back to the board what's going on in those committees. So we need to take some responsibility for, at least 2 board members are on that committee. And then when we have things that come up, facilities and finance, we'll come up here and,
I just want a copy
say what's
because we
going
have
on.
3 new members.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
we have to
we'll
change
get
our-
copies.
Change our,
So I would like everybody to look at that and probably email myself and Dr. Bresnahan sort of quickly here.
And if
a
we
list of
have a
possible-
choice right now, can we say it right now, or do you want us to email?
Yeah, you can. We'll make a list. You may not get your first choice depending on need. We'd need the representatives on all of them. So if you have a particular choice, you can request it now or send an email.
Sorry, I don't have my email open. I would like, I could do the ISAB North Cook one.
IASB.
And then also the superintendent safety.
Okay, and as for me, I will take the District 59 Education Foundation.
Oh, darn it. I'll be your alternative.
Okay.
They were delayed.
And I will sign up for the school nutrition one, if it's possible. Please and
More
thank
than
you.
happy to give mine as well.
And again,
If we're making running a list of suggestions, I'd be more than happy to participate in our finance and the facilities, of course. And
NSSEO alternate?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much.
Reading my
I've
mind.
never had to use it, but we'll have it as a backup.
I hope you will, because I'm looking forward to it.
If you want to, there's a meeting tomorrow night. It'll be Dr. Hackett's last meeting.
At what time?
It's early. It's 6. I think it's 6 o'clock at the headquarters, which is right next to Timber Ridge. I'll give you the details.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't mind. I want to defer to my new colleagues here, whatever they want to join. I think they've all
and
voiced what they.
These are great ways to learn stuff about the district. So if there's anything in particular you're interested in, and again, this isn't the final list right now. We'll collate a list and get back to everybody.
I'm always looking to have one less meeting on my calendar if I could. So that's all I got. But I'm interested in communications. I'll do that with Mr. Gray. We're going to switch that as needed to monthly, Ben, if you're listening.
Okay. And again, everybody just read through those.
Yeah.
If you can add yourself to one more, send me an email,
Mhm.
please. I cannot go to all of them.
But let me make a comment on committees really quick too. We want to be this efficient meeting machine when we have these meetings. And I'll give you a good example of how I made things less efficient last year. So Randy and Dr. Sager were on the Facilities and Finance Committee. They would vet these issues out. They would work with Ron and his team and everybody to vet these things out. And then I would ask the same exact questions that were asked at that Facility and Finance Committee because I just didn't know. So it's the committee members really reporting out what was discussed, giving us those details. You don't have to get a full report or anything like that, but just giving us all the confidence or the comfort, that we've analyzed it, we've looked at it, we've raised it, we brought these questions up. I'm done.
Okay.
So is there a preference for when those like policy or the behavioral committees would be that would immediately proceed? Do we want a 6 o'clock start on those nights?
So we need to sort of add
Yeah.
a discussion of, do we want to try and do closed sessions before board meetings, starting at 6:30? And then the regular public meeting would start at 7. Because that's going to require us to redo our calendar list saying that we will start at 6:30 because the board meeting officially begins with the closed session then.
I
So-
really have no preference. I just want to be sure we have it and then it stays there because I didn't know. I had a call
Mhm.
Cindy today. Is it going to be at 6 or is it going to be at 7?
Yeah. I like the idea of the closed sessions before the board meetings.
It's fine with me. I don't
I
care.
know we had discussed that,
Mhm.
previously. Does that seem reasonable? If
Yeah,
that's,
I like that better.
because I think then what we have to do is in July, we just have to approve that we will do 6:30 would be closed sessions. Because the meeting technically starts then, we have to post that as the start time. And then at 7, we are.
Can we just have a committee of the whole meeting starting? 'Cause can't you go into closed session?
We have to have it posted.
Sure, but like rather than change everything for the board meetings, can we have posted committee of the whole meetings before
In
every
other words,
meeting?
if there's nothing to discuss at the
Committee as a whole.
closed sessions, can we start at 6:30 or do we have to
Because
wait
that-
until
because
7?
then we
That is
can-
a question I have,
Yeah.
Mardell. Yeah. So like tonight,
Right.
we don't have anything for closed
Right.
session. So we can just leave at the end of the meeting. But if we post at 6:30, would we just then start at 6:30 and not have closed? I think it just makes it difficult for public comment
Yeah, 'cause
and
I think
people
there
to
may be
plan.
public comment. Someone may sign up to do a public comment at the committee of the whole and then nobody here, or.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's
it
a
could
whole
cause-
separate meeting. We have to do a
Gotta
roll
run it.
call, have to
Yeah.
do the pledge, public comment, then decide if we're going into closed session or not. I'll follow up
I
with, there's
kinda
several
like the
districts in the
committee
area
with
that do
the
this
closed session
beforehand.
at
I'll
the
follow
end.
up with the board presidents to see which way they run it. I think typically I would hope that if we don't have a closed session, we could just start at 7. instead of
I like
having to-
closed session at the end because oftentimes the superintendent can say, there's nothing for closed session tonight.
And if it feels like a treat, yes.
The only problem with it, like at the end, is when you have like professionals you're paying hourly, then they
Right.
show up at the start of the meeting and you could be paying a
Yeah.
lawyer for 3 hours of just
Yeah.
sitting there.
Okay.
Well, with being the cognitive exhaustion of sitting around for so long, but closed session might have some important things to discuss.
But we can always add closed sessions. So like if there is something that needed legal, we can add that so that we would have that ahead of time and not have to do that piece. So I think we have some flexibility. Either either way you all want to do it. It doesn't really matter to me.
Okay. I think I have.
So what did we decide?
We didn't decide anything. We decided, I'm going to follow up with some of the board presidents in the area who do have that first closed session. What do they do if they don't need the closed session? And then we'll discuss it at the next meeting.
Because I'm also seeing like a lot of these, the committees that we don't really even have to sign up for because we all just go to them because they're so infrequent. Those are before the meeting.
Right.
So that same concept.
Yeah. Yeah, same idea. So like if we had a meeting that was a committee meeting, 5:30 to 6:30, and then if there was a closed session, it would start at 6:30, then the public meeting would start at 7. Be kind of a long day for the person on that committee, but it also makes it more efficient, hopefully.
But that public start time at 7 should probably be consistent.
Yes, the public start time should be consistent, in my opinion, whatever way we do this. So that's why I'm going to follow up with other boards and see how they do that, doing the closed beforehand. Because you do then technically need to say, our meeting starts at 6:30 for the closed session, and then the open session will begin at 7.
Yeah.
It's a requirement of the Open Meetings Act. Okay. Where are we at now? We are down to new continuing business and announcements. Do we have any new and continuing business and announcements? No. So special interest topics for you.
Since the last report to the Board of Education, the district has responded to 6 FOIA requests.
Thank you. And then annual debt disclosure compliance.
Yeah, this is an FYI to the district due to our administrative procedure via policy 440. So essentially, it's reviewing compliance, and this is what I'm to do. So the first thing is that we do have one bond remaining, and it's in Emma already. For the crowd out in YouTube land, Emma stands for Electronic Municipal Market Access. So it does have to be a registered bond. We do have one out, and in this packet that we have for disclosures, it essentially tells you how much of a debt base that we do have as a district, as well as the bonds that were being taken out that are service outstanding, one with principal and interest, and then one page is with just the principal. So if you look at it, they say like calendar year 23 through 28, which is the last year that we'd have this one bond retire. Just on the bonded debt alone, it's $25,185,000. With interest, it's $29,594,700. So this is in essence showing and being open in public about what is essentially happening. So like when Mr. Johnson was asking about.
Yeah, I meant to ask the question I asked earlier now. That's exactly what I was talking about.
So for example, when we pay for the year, the almost $5 million, there are options where we can look at and saying, okay, if there are any sort of excess or interest, do you abate? And if so, how much are we expecting in terms of how it would impact any other households throughout our 4 municipalities? So that is something we can definitely look into for sure. But this does have the information though, essentially on how many years we have remaining and how much we have owed. So.
Any other questions? No. All right. That moves us on to reports of the Board of Education.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Actually, it's 2 reports. Just closing most of mine with a nice note. Last month, on the 19th, there was a very nice event at Claremont School, which I got a chance to attend. It was basically a bingo night where the PTO was trying to help the school by raising funds, and they got one of their most successful ones because they raised almost $1,600.
Okay.
I loved the event. I was there with my daughter as well, and then I think most kids had all kids had lots of fun, and I think most adults, because some of them had to run behind the kids, which for me is fun. second update, and Joe, you were there as well. On the next day, NSSEO had their fundraising event with raffles and kids integrating and walking around the block. They called it the was it stroll and
Roll and stroll.
Roll and stroll. There we go. I flipped it. And I believe they raised just over $1,000 as well. So a very nice event, great opportunity to go and participate.
I got one too.
Mhm.
In May, I went to the ISBE Teacher of the Year, Those Who Excel banquet, and I watched my college roommate get an award from the state for her teaching. So shout out to Katie Kelly. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking, I would love it if 59 teachers were up there. So if you have a great teacher in your building and you want to nominate them, that's at isbe.net/teacher of the year. And I'll say it again when those nominations start. But I want to see 59 teachers up there being honored because they're amazing.
We can also share the link Ross provided to your friend there if she's interested in any of our positions too. Awesome.
Mardo?
Yeah, I have some very sad news to tell you tonight. I received a phone call from Peg Shannon, the wife of John Shannon, who is a longtime board member on our board before I got on the board and after I got on the board. And he's 81 years old and he just died. So it's very sad. I don't know what his circumstances were, but he is being laid out June 29th at the facility in the St. Zach's Church in Des Plaines. And it'll be, let me see, put my notes aside here. I believe it's from 10 to 11, and then there'll be a service at 11 o'clock, a mass at 11 o'clock. There won't be any funeral parlor involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a wonderful board member. Anybody who's of the older generation, like me, you know him. Otherwise, all you young people don't. But he was excellent, and I'm very sad about this.
Mm-hmm.
He was only 81 years old. That's not that old.
Daisy, did you?
I just want to give a shout out to the Elk Grove Village, especially to Laura, who invited us to the Memorial Day. I was there present as long with Joe and Lucas, and it was very nice. I missed Mardell that day. I don't know where she didn't go, but still, it was very nice. It was very nice, and I truly appreciate those invitations. And I just want to give, also, I was at the Holmes graduation, and I was very happy to see a lot of people from the administration there. So good job for you guys for being there and presenting. And I just want to give a big shout out to all the home staff. It gets me very emotional because I get to see a lot of the John Jay students graduate at that time, and they're going up to high school, and now they're like out of 59, and it's like I feel like there's like my kids as well because I was still at JPTO when they got to graduate, and now I get to see them graduate, go up to high school. And it was very nice. It was a very nice ceremony, very, very organized. And I just got, like I was telling Joe earlier, well, he was telling me that about the little, the Avid ones that they got to wear. It just makes them look like way more like, not more important, but they do look important, but not more important than the other ones, but they look very sophisticated to, see them wear that. And just very proud of our students that graduated. And yeah.
The real fast, months ago, maybe even last year, I went to Mrs. Ruiz's class in Grove, I believe, to speak to the students there. Recently, they did a field trip to Northwestern's law school, and two of those kids that were in that class emailed me, and that just made my day, and I really appreciated that. And I responded to both of them, letting them know, because they both felt like out of place. And I told them, never feel like you're a fish out of water when you go to those things, and picture yourself, succeeding wherever it is that you go. But I mean, it just made my day getting those two emails from those kids. Later in that day, I went to John Jay and I received pies in the face from all of the graduating fifth graders. I've done that multiple years, and like I did with the committees, I will defer to my new colleagues if anyone ever wants to get a pie in the face in my place. Let me know.
I told my daughter to make sure to throw that pie. Really far.
Yeah, one kid just held a pie because they were pieing the fifth grade teachers and Officer Friendly and me, and one kid was holding a pie, just looking at me, going, "Who are you?" You know. So it just so yeah, so it was good, but a lot of fun.
Adding on to what was already spoken, if you ever want to decide to go back to having a board member give the graduation speeches like I used to do, I would be happy to do it if we go back to that. I did not get to any of the graduations this year, so I don't know how it went with the children speaking.
Talking to that, there was one of our students at Holmes
How
that
did they
gave her
choose the
speech in
graduation
Spanish.
speaker? How did they choose the student?
I think some were, whether they were student council presidents, they varied by each of our schools that were chosen by the staff.
One of our students gave the speech in Spanish, and one of our students at Holmes gave her speech in Spanish, fully Spanish. And I'm very sorry who don't understand Spanish, but that was just simply beautiful. I tried really hard. I'm a crier, and I tried really hard because I didn't want my lashes to fall off, but it was extremely, my daughter was watching me, she just like the lashes, but it was beautiful. It was truly like very personal as well, but that just makes me even prouder of our students. They are being, they're bilingual and they're part of it. So
How many of them did you get to?
I only went to Holmes.
Just the one?
I was at the Grove graduation. I think Dr. Sager, you were at every graduation along with Dr. Bresnahan. So I couldn't believe Grove filled up the entire high school, Elk Grove High School gymnasium. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Wold comes up for the schools. And then to that point, everybody has a letter from the Elk Grove board and Elk Grove mayor about partnering with us even more extensively than they already do about safety in schools. And I think it's perfect timing with the architects being in here and us having to look at capacity and all that. So that's it for me.
Are we going
Just a quick on that.
going to be part of that?
Just a little quick
When
on
is
that
it?
note.
I'm not sure.
It'll
Dr.
go
Sager
to
sent
the
an email
safety
to us.
committee, Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right here.
And I'll give you the response I sent, Mardell. Yeah.
And just a quick note on that, plus on Daisy's comment for being invited to Elk Grove Village Memorial Day celebration. +1 shout out. It was wonderful to be there, and we definitely appreciate being invited.
Okay, very briefly. So just from the Facilities and Finance Board Committee meeting, Lucas and I were there. We discussed the items that were covered today. There wasn't really any new major things that appeared. Since the last meeting, let's see, I worked the PTO flower sale for Bird Grove and Elk Grove High School. I attended the DEA retirement celebration, which had Daisy and Robert there. And I want to thank the DEA for inviting board members. It was great to sit down with you and have a nice meal and celebrate the end of the school year, but also celebrate teachers in their careers. I attended Dr. Judy Hackett's retirement celebration as NSSEO superintendent. I attended the District 59 retirement celebration here with Mardell. And I went to the 7th and 8th grade band concert at Grove, and it's great because when they have the 8th graders there, they call them all up and give them awards that's their last concert at the junior high, and it was real nice. I went to the Kirk School Student Market for NSSEO, the minor Roland Stroll. I visited second graders at Devonshire and got to see them do a math lesson, and then sat with them during their closing circle where they were great. They love having visitors. It was wonderful. Went to the Elk Grove Memorial Day ceremony, and then went to Holmes, Friendship, and Grove graduations where I wear my silly robes because somebody has to be in
Too bad you
solidarity
weren't
with the
busy.
students.
We paid for those robes. We're gonna
Yeah,
wear
I bought the robes. I'm going to wear them as many times as I possibly can.
Did a good job.
Okay, so that finishes up reports of the Board of Education. There is no closed session today, so Mardell, we get our treat of going a little bit early, so we can skip to number 16 there, motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
We need a second.
Second.
And we need to do a vote, and the time is 8:28 p.m.
Roll call. Okay.
Yep.
Zach.
Aye.
Espino, I. Johnson.
Aye.
Mancia. Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher. Schumacher.
Aye.